Hello everyone, Dr. Vaughn here, and congratulations on being inducted into Psi Chi. It's such an amazing thing to do, and remember, the best investment you can ever make is an investment in yourself. So congratulations. I thought today I would talk a little bit about my career path, some of the amazing mentors that I've gotten to work with, and some of the lessons that I learned along the way. Let's do it.
Okay, so it all started at Purdue University. My application to Harvard and Yale must have gotten lost in the mail because I never did hear back from them. But that's okay because Purdue was my top choice. And, I always knew I wanted to go to Purdue. But the interesting thing was I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do there. So I actually entered as an undecided major. So I definitely didn't have everything figured out, but it wasn't before long that I started reading about psychology and really getting excited about psychology courses because you see, at first I had sort of a limited understanding of what psychology actually was. I was like most people, when you mention psychology, you think of therapy, you think of Freud. I didn't realize how diverse the field actually was.
You fool!
And then I'll never forget I got to take my first cognitive psychology class with a professor named Dr. Greg Francis. And the amazing thing was what Dr. Francis, did was he ignited a passion within me because he was so excited and so enthusiastic about research that it was just infectious, right? So the way you would talk about, data and experiments, it was like you were watching the World Series or something, Whoa. So I absolutely knew that this is what I wanted to pursue and this is the path I wanted to take. But the question was, how do you do that, right? So everyone I spoke with, said that I needed to find a mentor and I needed to get experience in an undergraduate lab. Fortunately, I was lucky. There was a brand new faculty that had just started at Purdue, a guy by the name of Dr. Jeffrey Karpicki. And I interviewed with Dr. Jeffrey Karpicki and was able to secure a research assistant position in his lab. And Dr. Karpicki, investigated all the things I was interested in. He was exploring learning, memory, and something called testing effects, which later is what I studied in graduate school and continue to study to this day.
Excellent!
Now, working with Dr. Karpicki was a fantastic experience because I started to learn how a research lab worked, right? I started to get experience bringing participants into the lab, collecting data. We would talk about the data, talk about the results of the experiment. We would plan follow-ups. So this really got me interested in research even further and sort of solidified that this really is the path that I wanted to take. Fortunately, working with Dr. Karpicki was enough to get me into graduate school. So I went to Kent State University. And this is where I met my second mentor, Dr. Catherine Rawson. So when I entered graduate school, the rules changed. I was told to no longer focus on my coursework. In fact, I was told not to devote any extra time to my classes at all.
What?
Instead, I was told to pass them, but really my primary focus should be on research. And focus on research we did. Catherine and I would have weekly meetings, and those weekly meetings lasted 3 hours. I learned so much from Catherine as a mentor. Catherine taught me how to set long-term goals. We would have, for every semester, what we called our bird's eye view. And a bird's eye view was our goal for the actual semester. So for every category, whether it was programming experiments, analyzing data, or writing manuscripts, we would decide what our goals were. We would rank them in terms of our priorities. And then at the end of every semester, we would actually meet to discuss whether or not we had achieved our goals. So Catherine also introduced me to programming, and I started to learn how to actually program experiments that we were running in the lab. I got teaching experience. I started teaching my first course in graduate school, and I got writing experience. Now see, for me, I thought my writing was fairly decent when I entered graduate school.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
But it turns out that, writing a manuscript is just such a unique thing. So we would, write manuscripts and revise them over and over and over again. And what a learning experience that was. It might have taken us 10, 11, 12 drafts before we were ready to submit a manuscript, but I learned so much along the way. After graduate school, I was fortunate to land a postdoctoral fellowship at a place called Williams College, where I met my third mentor, Dr. Nate Cornell. Now, Dr. Cornell taught me a lot of new things. And in particular, I had to rethink how I thought about data and how I collected and analyzed data. You see, in the past, I had always, run participants in a lab one by one, or maybe, 3 or 4 at a time if you had the computer space. But at Williams College, there was a very small subject pool, so we could not just recruit undergraduates to participate in our studies. So Nate had actually learned how to run studies online, and that was the main thing that I learned when I went to Williams College. So I learned, how to put studies online, how to collect data online, and this was just crazy because we could have, instead of taking 4, 5, 6 months to get data for an experiment, we might have the data within 2 to 3 weeks. Of course, in order to run these experiments online, I had to learn an entirely new set of skills. I had to learn 2 new programming languages that I had basically no experience with. I also learned new ways to think about data and analyze data. You see, in the past, I had always created these complicated programs that would analyze my data, and it involved all this tedious coding, and I learned an entirely new approach to analyzing the results of an experiment. So that was actually fascinating to me. Of course, the party had to end at some point. So I realized after a few years that I needed to start getting serious about the job market and actually applying for jobs. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to land an amazing position at this wonderful university called Northern Kentucky University. Maybe you've heard of it. Where, by the way, I continue to receive support, guidance, and mentorship from some of the absolute finest faculty that I've ever worked with. But when I got to NKU, something very strange happened. You see, I went from being this devoted mentee, trying to learn as much as I could from my mentors. I went from being the mentee to being the mentor. But you see, as scary as it was, I just had to think back for a moment on all the terrific guidance and mentorship I had received. You see, my first mentor got my foot in the door and showed me how a research lab operated. I learned and grew a lot. My second mentor helped me lay a foundation as a scientist. I grew even more. My third mentor helped me further refine my techniques and taught me new ways to think about and analyze data. I grew even more. But you see, the strange thing is, when I became the mentor, that was when I grew the most. You see, I learned right away that when you set a goal and achieve that goal, that's rewarding. But when you help someone else set goals and you help them achieve their goals, that's life-changing. So as we come to a close, I would invite you to do a few things with me. First, just have a moment of gratitude, a moment of being grateful for all of those mentors that have come into your life, for all of those people that have inspired you, for all of those people that have been patient and caring with you and helped you get to where you are today. The second thing is that if you don't currently have a mentor in your life, go find a mentor, right? You will learn so much from having a mentor in your life. Mentors absolutely change your life. You will grow more than you've ever grown before by learning from a mentor. The third thing is that, remember, you don't have to wait until you're an established professor or you've got your career all figured out to be a mentor, right? You can go out and help people. You've got a unique set of skills and abilities that will allow you to help people. And of course, if you help people achieve their goals, you'll find that it's one of the most rewarding things you can do. Of course, you have to be careful because if you help enough people, you might just turn into a superhero. Thank you.